What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined once again by Justin Lorber, a.k.a. Future Dodgers, here to talk a little MLB Draft. If you missed our first video talking about the futures game, go ahead and check that out. But Sunday night, the MLB Draft gets underway. Justin is our guy to give us some information, give us some tips, talk us through some of the links for those of us that haven't been able to dive really into this one. So, Justin, let's start here. Give us the big picture of this draft class as a whole. Like, what is this, a top-heavy draft? Is this a deep draft? Is it a hitter's draft, pitcher's draft? What are folks saying about the draft as a whole?
I think as far as the first round goes, probably more top-heavy and definitely college-heavy. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see the first 5, 6, 7, 8 picks all be college players.
Okay. And then the Dodgers not picking until number 23. So when you say top heavy, is this the type of draft that you don't want to be picking 23rd in because sort of the guys that maybe are a tier or 2 tiers above are all going to be off the board by that point?
I think from year to year, there's not that much difference in picking 23rd. I don't think this is an exceptionally deep draft. Like, you're not getting guys who this guy would have been in the top 10 2 years ago or that type of thing. 23rd, though, is higher than the Dodgers have picked in a little while. That's just the new rules of the CBA, that it's based on when you exit the playoffs, not based on your regular season record, which if they had been doing for the last 10 years, the Dodgers would have picked significantly higher because of all the playoff exits.
And then last question, a sort of big picture. Hitters, pitchers, is there sort of a leaning one way or the other as far as where there might be more talent?
As far as the draft as a whole, or for the Dodgers in general?
Draft as a whole.
I think this class, at least at the top, there's a lot of college hitters. I think, in the top 20 or 25 picks, there'll be quite a few college hitters that go.
Okay. We mentioned the Dodgers pick 23rd. One of the big storylines for the Dodgers in this one, they have no second round pick. They have no 5th round pick. So their first pick is 23rd. They don't pick again until 98th. Obviously, part of the reason for that is some competitive picks they have lost because they have signed guys with qualifying offers, that type of thing. But how might that impact, before we get into specific names, which we're going to get to, but how might that impact the strategy, if at all, knowing that once you pick at 23, there's 75 more picks off the board before you pick again, not to mention no second, no 5th. There's a big chunk of your bonus pool that's going to be, non-existent for the Dodgers this year.
Yeah, it's a really small bonus pool, similar to what the Dodgers had back in 2021, when they also didn't have a second round pick. They did have their 5th round pick, though, that year. I think they also might have had a comp pick or two, but I digress. Yeah, it definitely changes the strategy because you're a lot more limited in what you can do, both just in the players you're able to take because, you only have one of the first 97 picks, and in the money you have available to move around and play with. In 2021, they went a little bit under slot with Maddox Bruns to spread the money out elsewhere. A lot of that went to Peter Hubeck, their 3rd round pick. Could they do the same thing? Maybe. My personal take would be you might not be picking as high as 23 again, regardless of, the draft class depth quality for a little while. 23 is higher than the Dodgers have picked in some time. So maybe worth getting a player who falls or, a talent that you might not be able to normally get if you're picking 28, 29, 30, or if you're picking in the mid 30s because your pick falls 10 slots because you're over the 3rd luxury tax level, which the Dodgers might be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and not to mention, one thing that's sort of come up as we've done, so I've had conversations with people at Oklahoma City, is this new rule as part of the CBA that limits the size of the organization and the number of guys that you can actually have under contract. Part of me wonders, Justin, if that's going to change some of the strategy where maybe there was this incentive to spread out your money over all of your picks and sign all of these guys and get them all in. I wonder if at some point the Dodgers look at organizational depth and say, hey, let's just go get high-end talent and draft a couple of these guys and pay them and then sort of figure the rest out later. Not to say they're just going to waste picks the rest of the draft, but do you think there's any chance that the type of strategy you suggest, maybe they go after a guy who is supposed to be a top 15 pick who falls, who is expecting far more than maybe they can offer with the 23rd draft slot, but maybe they throw a little bit extra at them just to make sure they get high end talent rather than sort of quality over quantity, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think you've already seen that come into play with last year's draft. Obviously, uh, teams don't sign every pick. That's been true basically every year of the draft, save for the 5-round 2020 draft.
Yeah.
But last year, taking the quarterback from Oregon State, who's now at Florida State, a couple of their other picks on day 3 ended up going back to school. Jackson Jelkin, who's another who has actually raised his stock a lot. Probably a good decision from a business perspective on his end to go back to school. Javen Coleman from LSU as well. So I think you've seen that come into play last year. I think it's a factor. I don't know if it's a decision-making factor for them, but it is, one of these new considerations that might play into things.
Yeah, and you mentioned bonus pool, by the way. Second smallest bonus pool in all of Major League Baseball, 6.1 million for the Dodgers. Only the Astros at 5.9 have less. And just for context, third on that list is 7 million. So they're 900,000 behind the third lowest bonus pool that belongs to the Rangers. Let's get into some specific names that have been linked. MLB Draft, I say this every time you and I chat around this time of year. It's so interesting to me. This draft could not be more different from the NBA draft or the NFL draft, because there is no consensus on who's the best players or not the best players. There might be some, but then there's organizational fit. There's sort of philosophies about high school pitchers versus college hitters, whatever. And then there's just the factor of these guys don't have to sign. The teams don't hold all the leverage like they do in other sports. And so with all that said, there's a lot more linking of players and teams ahead of time because teams have to do homework and say, hey, if we draft you here, what kind of number is it going to take? So when you hear names that are connected, it typically doesn't mean nothing. So walk us through, Justin, maybe a few of the names that you've seen pop up a handful of times across the different sites, ESPN, Baseball America, The Athletic, wherever it might be. Who are the few of the names that you've seen the Dodgers linked to at number 23?
Yeah, well, first, just one quick note on demographics. The last 4 years, the Dodgers' first 4 picks, last year, Kendall George, high school hitter. Year before that, Dalton Rushing, college hitter. Year before that, Maddox Bruns, high school pitcher. Year before that, Bobby Miller, college pitcher. They've taken all 4 of the major demographics with their first pick. So I don't think there's like a clear trend that they would avoid one group or not avoid one group. They've spread it out. This regime has spread it out across the different demographics of the last few years. With that said, I think the name that people have seen the most, at least that I've seen the most, has been Cash Mayfield, who's a prep lefty from Oklahoma. He's committed to Oklahoma State. Big mid-90s fastball with carry, gets swing and miss. Got a breaking ball too. Now, I think, you hear that, you might be getting some Maddox Bruns vibes, but the big question with Maddox Bruns entering the draft was the command. It was elite stuff, but the command was a bigger question mark. With Cash Mayfield, control, command, that's actually one of his strengths. At least, if you read the scouting reports, that has been one of his better attributes to go along with maybe not like premium elite stuff a la Maddox Bruns, but the command has been better comparatively.
Love it. So we got a high school pitcher as the first name. Any other names that have maybe popped up repeatedly on these lists before we get to maybe a couple guys that you like personally?
Yeah, there's a few. Durangelo Senja, which is a little bit of a hard name to pronounce, a little bit more difficult to write. So Senja, it's spelledCijntje. It's from Curacao. He plays at Mississippi State. He's draft eligible sophomore. Probably one of the more unique pitchers in the draft in the last few years. He's 5'11". He's super athletic. He is a switch pitcher. He throws with both his right and his left hand. He's better from the right side, mid to upper 90s. Left side, at a low to mid 90s. So you're taking him probably as a mostly right-handed pitcher with maybe some key matchups on the left side. But it's not a gimmick. He can legit pitch from the left side, and he has. Like he played in Little League World Series a few years ago, and the coach came out and switched gloves mid at bat. It is a very real thing, not very common, obviously. And yeah, it's a cool story, but make no mistake, he is a first round talent. Like there's a reason he's being mentioned in the first round.
Reliever only, or does he have the potential to be a starter? Typically, when we've seen that, it's kind of been more out of the bullpen type guys. Is he the type that would start as a starter, or is he maybe just pigeonholed into being a reliever from the get go?
No. You're trying to develop him as a starter like you would with any first round pick. You pitcher, you want to develop him as a starter first. Speaking of starter versus reliever, another guy who I've seen linked a little bit, Brody Brett, who's a right-handed pitcher from Iowa. Now I mentioned elite stuff earlier. This is possibly the best stuff in the draft. Stuff models go crazy. Big question is the command. Will it ever be average? Will it ever be plus? Probably not. Might be average. If he wants to start, command's got to improve a little bit. But this is really, really high-end stuff. Super athletic. He used to be a receiver for the football team before focusing on baseball full time. So a little bit of Jeff Samardzija vibes there. People know that name. As far as college pitchers goes, I would look at Sanger. I would look at Brett as some of the guys that are in that range that they've been linked to.
Okay. I know. Everyone who watches this that knows I'm an Oregon guy. Oregon's middle linebacker was playing center field for their baseball team this year, and he's like third on the team in tackles, and then played starting center fielder on a team that like made it to the final 16 in the College World Series. So some of these athletes are insane to me. Offensively, any guys they've been linked to? I know Keith Law mentioned a high school shortstop named Kellen Lindsay, Tommy White, the third baseman from LSU, were two names that he had heard linked. Either of those guys that you've seen pop up other places, or any other hitters the Dodgers might be connected to?
Yeah, so Kellen Lindsay, prep shortstop from Florida, committed to Florida. Theo Gillen, who's a prep shortstop from Texas, committed to Texas. Slade Caldwell, prep outfielder from Arkansas, committed to Mississippi.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are three guys who I've seen linked and are kind of in that back of the first round range. Gillen he's kind of the projectable, like bigger size shortstop, maybe above average hit, above average power. Lindsay, another dual sport athlete, big speed. I think there are some questions about whether he might even move to center field from shortstop. Slade Caldwell, a little bit smaller, under 6 foot, but great bat to ball skills. The archetype with him is, kind of similar to someone like a Drew Gilbert, who's a prospect for the Astros. Maybe like the fully idealized version of that is somebody like Corbin Carroll. Not saying he's going to be Corbin Carroll, but like that's the type of player that you would hope Caldwell develops into. At all things, if you take him and if it works out, that's the type of player you look at. You mentioned Tommy White, LSU third baseman, probably a first baseman at the pro level. I think one of the more recognizable college names for people who follow college, both being on LSU and he was a big star as a freshman at NC State before transferring. He hits home runs. His nickname is Tommy Tanks for a reason. 20 plus home runs in each of his 3 years in college. He's going to hit homers, but he's defensively limited. I'm not sure the Dodgers would take a player like that in the first round, just as they haven't done that super high typically. As far as other college bats go, there's a group of guys who I think are likely to go before the Dodgers pitch, somewhere in the teens, maybe early 20s. Ryan Waldschmidt from Kentucky, Cam Smith from Florida State, Seaver King from Wake Forest, Christian Moore from Tennessee. All those guys, if one of them fall, I could see the Dodgers being interested. Vance Honeycutt from North Carolina, high upside, some swing and miss concerns. Might go before, might go after, but also kind of in that range. A college hitter that I like personally is Malcolm Moore, catcher from Stanford. I think similar vibes to a Dalton Rushing.
We need more catchers in the system. Let's get some more catchers in here.
Yeah, look, that's never stopped them before.
I know.
Will Smith just signed a 10-year deal. Wouldn't stop him. Malcolm Moore, more of an offensively oriented catcher who, maybe might move off the position, but you're buying the bat there, which is what I would buy. And I was a fan of him when he was in the draft 2 years ago as a high school player. He's a draft eligible sophomore now. A couple other names that I'll just throw onto that. Will Schmidt, who's a high school pitcher from Baton Rouge, committed to LSU. Actually, I forget where I read this. He went to the same high school as both the Nola brothers.
Wow.
So, the Dodgers have taken prep righties committed to LSU before in the first round, and ultimately it worked out by trading Zach Lee for Chris Taylor. But
yeah,
he's a name that I've seen linked. Braylon Dowdy is a prep righty from California who's kind of made his way up in the draft. If it's a little bit more, I say reach, but like it's really subjective. If you're going off public rankings, it might be a little bit of a reach at 23, but he's really kind of bumped himself up, in the past like couple of months, and I could see him going in kind of those mid-20s.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, let's get out of here on this. I'll give you 2 chances to guess. And these could be, you could answer this question as the guys you would like them to draft. You could answer this question as you want to make a prediction. You could give us one of each. Maybe we'll do that. Give me one name of the guy that, like, if the Dodgers were to walk out having signed to this player and it's a realistic player, it would be sort of an A-graded draft for you. And then if it's a different player that you actually think they might draft that you want to put down on paper, so to speak, as your prediction, who that would be as well.
All right. So my pick. And I, being realistic here, some of those college hitters, more likely that they get taken in the teens and aren't there at 23. Being realistic, I'm going to say Brody Brecht, right-hander from Iowa. Stuff like that is not widely available.
Okay.
And if you can harness that, which as far as, harnessing guys with elite stuff, not many better organizations than the Dodgers to do so. That would be my pick personally. I think it'd be a lot of fun. If you're asking me to make a call, again, I've seen Cash Mayfield more than any other name, but I'm going to go with Slade Caldwell, outfielder from Arkansas, committed to Mississippi. That's going to be my pick. I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path.
I like it. Well, stay tuned because we'll do a recap after the draft. We'll see how Justin did. We'll talk through the first round pick, maybe depending on when we get to it in the week, maybe some of the other picks the Dodgers have made. So again, Justin, thanks for your time. And folks, again, if you missed our episode talking about the futures game, go back and watch that. And then also we've got another video coming out in the next day or two talking about just kind of prospects, where the system is. And I want to pick Justin's brain on, we talked about a lot of hitters. There's been some questions about the Dodgers' ability to develop hitters. I want to get Justin's thoughts on that as well. So thanks everybody for joining us. Please subscribe, ring the notification bell. That is Justin Lorber. You can check him out at Future Dodgers, futuredodgers.com. I am Jeff Spiegel. Enjoy the rest of your day. As always, go Dodgers.